I am what it says I am. I can do absolutely everything that it says I can do. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, matter of fact, I am a believer and I'm not a doubter. And look at your other neighbor and say, neighbor, my life is getting better and better. Matter of fact, it's getting better even right now. It's getting better and better after hearing the word of faith. Well, if you are needing a Bible, raise your hand. The ushers are there. They would be more than willing to lend you one for our time here together. Hallelujah. It's time to stretch. It's time to stretch. The definition of stretch means to lengthen, to tighten, to cause to extend from one place to another or across a given space. To lengthen, to widen, to tighten, to cause to extend from one place to another or across a given space. Look at your neighbor one more time and say, neighbor, it's time to stretch. Now, when I thought about it, I thought about all the wonderful things God has done and all the marvelous things and all the open doors that he's done for us and how he has completely delivered us and set us free, given us a wonderful family. But I also thought about God always likes to outdo himself. So no matter what he has already done, it's still not good enough for him. No matter what he has delivered you from, no matter what open doors that he has provided for you, God is still never satisfied in where you are. God says, I still want to do more for your life. Look at your neighbor and say, there's more to come. God likes to outdo himself. He wants to show his favor in your life in greater ways today than he did yesterday. He wants you to be more blessed today than you are today. That means that if you are a teacher, he wants you to be a better teacher. You haven't taught your best class yet. If you're a builder, you have not built your best builder or your building yet. Whatever you are, God says that you haven't done your best yet. You just kind of begin just to kind of, you know how you do in life. You just kind of just go through life and, kind of half-hearted, just kind of drifting through and, just kind of taking life the way it comes. But God says that you have not done your best yet. If you are a singer, you ain't sung your best song yet. If you are a writer, you have not written your greatest book yet. If you are a designer, you have not designed your best yet. You have not done your best yet. Look at your neighbor and say, God is getting ready to stretch you. So you got to keep pressing forward. You got to get rid of low expectations. Matter of fact, neurologists have discovered that the average person uses less than 10% of his or her mind. That means more than 90% of your mind is lying dormant. Matter of fact, you can say that it's not being activated totally, it's lying asleep. You have never tapped into your full potential. But when I think about it, it all starts in our minds. And we have to believe that we have what it takes. We have to believe that we have a gift, a treasure on the inside of us. And many times what we do, we bury what we need to expose, and we expose what we should be burying. I'll say that one more time. We are burying what we need to expose, and we are exposing what we need to bury. In other words, God has some gifts and talents inside of you that you are really just playing with. You ain't really tapped in on it all totally like God really wants to. And so whatever God calls you to do and be, you operate it in your ability to the fullest. You don't try to act off of somebody else's capability. You operate according to your gift and according to your capability and be the best that you can be. Because I realize I can never be anybody else, but what I can do, I can be the best me. I can't walk in nobody else's shoes. God got my shoes designed just for me. So I don't need to try to act like nobody. I don't need to talk like nobody. I don't need to try to even think like nobody. What God has put inside of me, it is designed to take me to my next level. And what you've got to realize, the capability that God has placed inside of you is really good enough. All I got to do is build on what he already put in it. I ain't got to try to rearrange it. I ain't got to try to borrow somebody else's capability. All I got to do is take what he has given me and work it to its fullest. Work it to the full extent that I can work it. In other words, I take off all barriers, all chains, everything that would try to keep me from coming out to my fullest. Look at your neighbor and say, you got to get ready to come out. You got to get ready to stretch because you getting ready to go somewhere else. So you got to get uncomfortable. In order for you to go to another place, you got to get uncomfortable where you at. Because as long as you are uncomfortable where you will never thrive. You will never feel that you need to go anywhere. But as long as you look at yourself and say, you know what, you can do better than that. You can sing better than that. You can write better than that. You can build better than that. You can be better than what you are right now. Once you come to the point where you know that you are only operating only of a small percentage of what you really could be, the enemy cannot stop you. He can't hold you back. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm getting ready to break out. I'm getting ready to stretch. I'm getting ready to go to another place. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to move forward. I'm getting ready to go. I'm getting ready. I can't stay here any longer. I can't stay in this condition any longer. I've got to go to another place. Look at somebody else and say, oh, neighbor, did you hear just what she said? She said, you got to go to another place. And because you on my road, I'm going to push you to your another level. Matter of fact, just take your hand and just push them. Just kind of gently push them. Yeah. They need a little help. They need a little encouragement. Just push them a little bit. Just push them. Don't hurt nobody up in here. Don't hurt nobody. Don't knock them off the road. Don't do all that. Just kind of gently, you can just give a gentle push. Some folks just need just a little encouragement. Just a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little encouragement. So God says that I'm getting ready to expand you. But you also got to realize that opportunities will come in the form of opposition. Opportunities, many times, will come in the form of opposition. And so what we do is, because we see the opposition, we refuse to go to the other side. But opportunities many times will come in the form of opposition. And if you don't read it right, you will allow it to keep you at a standstill. Say, opportunity can be disguised sometimes. A car has the capacity to reach 100 miles. But if you never put the pedal to the metal, it will never achieve its full potential. It has the potential to go 100 miles an hour. But if you don't take your foot and put the pedal to the metal and cause it to accelerate, it'll never get there. It'll stay at the level that you're driving it. My question to you, how fast are you going? What is your speed? Are you coasting? Or are you gliding? Are you barely moving? Have you pushed the pedal to the metal in your life? Look at your neighbor and say, how fast are you going? Examine that. Are you going as fast as you can go? Or are you on cruise control? And the thing about cruise control, what I found out, I was driving Pastor's car, and I accidentally put it on cruise control. And I didn't know I was doing it. I mean, it was a little knob there, and I just keep accidentally putting it on cruise control. The Holy Ghost just told me a few minutes ago when I said that many times you accidentally put your life on cruise control, and you don't even realize that you done it. Just now. He said, you'll be going along, make a sudden move that you didn't even know you made. Got out of position and didn't even know you was out of position. And it was so subtle that it didn't even register in your mind. And it caused you to put your life in cruise control. And you look back and you say, why I ain't going nowhere? Why I'm seemingly to be at a standstill? Why I'm not going as fast as I need to go? But that's because your life is in cruise mode. It's in cruise mode. And the thing is, what I learned when you're in cruise control, if you don't put on the brakes or if you don't accelerate the brake, it'll just stay there. In other words, if you don't do anything to get out of cruise control, you'll stay on cruise control. You'll just stay there. So in order for you to get out of this cruise motion, I got to do something. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, you got to do something. Neighbor, it's time for you to stretch. So the capacity is in you. The real question is, are you willing to break free from your self-imposed limitations and start stretching to the next level? Now, back in the Garden of Eden, after Adam and Eve, they was in the garden, and they had eaten the forbidden fruit. They hid in the cool of the day. And God came, and he said, Adam, where are you? Oh, Adam and Eve, where are you? They said, God, we're hiding because we're naked. But I love the way God answered them. He said, Adam, who told you that you was naked? He was saying, in other words, who told you that something was wrong with you? Because God immediately knew that the enemy had been talking to them because they hid themselves. When God is trying to get something to you, the enemy will always come in with another voice to try to cause you to doubt what God has called you. There are two voices that you will always listen to: the voice of God and your voice. No matter what people say to you, the main voices that really, really begin to shape your life is the voice that you hear in the voice of God. That's why you got to declare the word of the Lord over you. And so what I had begun to do, I just began just to walk around and just to say, you know what, I'm creative. I got a lot of creativity. I'm talented. I'm anointed. I just start calling those things in my life. Because what happens is, the more I say it, the more it gets solidified in me. The more you hear yourself say something, the more you believe it. Because what happens is, it begins to register inside of you. And then you begin to start acting like what you just said. And all of a sudden you say, oh my God, I've been saying I'm creative, and here all this creativity come. Why? Because what happened is, it just registered in. But then it takes a moment for it to really register in. And so what we do is, we'll back off because we don't see nothing registering, and we'll just give up. But you can't give up, because what happened is, every time you're confessing, you're making a deposit. Every time you say I'm healed, every time you say that I shall declare the works of the Lord, every time you say I'm not going under but I'm going over, every time you say that I am the head and I'm not the tail, every time you say I am prosperous, I am rich, what you're doing, you're making deposits. And what happens is the more deposits you make, all of a sudden you shall get a return on what you've been saying. Now, it may take a minute, but you don't stop. You keep on making the deposit because remember, payday is going to come. Payday is going to come. The longer you say it, you can guarantee that I'm getting ready to get a return off of the seeds and the deposits that I placed in my life. That's why you don't stop. That's why you don't give up. Look at your neighbor and say, it's time to stretch. So God was saying, who told you that you was naked? God is saying to you today, who told you that you can't succeed? Who told you that the best grades you can make in school would be C's rather than A's? Who told you that you are not attractive enough to succeed in your personal relationships or talented enough to flourish in your career? Who told you that your marriage is never going to last? Who told you that you'll never ever get married? Who told you that there is no good coming out of your life, that you are just where you gonna stay right here? Who told you that? Who told you that you cannot bounce back? Who told you? Look at your neighbor and say, I got a question for you. Who told you? Who told you that? There was a tightrope walker. And so he had actually had a family that had done this tight rope walking. Y'all know what a tight rope walking is, right? Yeah, you walk on this little thin tight rope from one end to the other end. So they asked him, they say, your family is very successful. We have a question. What do you contribute all your success to? And the man said, the key to walking on the tightrope is that you got to keep your eyes fixed on where you're going. He said, you never look down. He said, where your head goes, that's where your body is going too. He told the man, if you look down, there's a good chance that you will fall down. He said, so you always have to look to where you want to be. It's the same principle in life. Some people are always looking back, focused on their hurts and pains. That's what Lot's wife did. God says, I need you to leave Solomon and Gomorrah. He says, but this is what's going to guarantee your success all the way out. He said, as you go out, don't look back. And what she do, she looked back. And we know the story of Lot's wife. Turned to a pillar of salt. It's so important that you don't look back, especially when you're trying to get out. When you're trying to get out, it's very crucial and it's very critical that you don't look back. Because on your way out, that is your most vulnerable time, is when you making your way out. So to look back could cause you to sabotage where you're trying to go. It's almost like a woman that's pregnant and they say, you know, your first trimesters, you know, your first 3 months, you got to be very careful how you carry this child. You got to be careful, you know, you don't try to run around the track and, you know, put on no high heels and, you know, and just do all this crazy stuff like you're not carrying a newborn baby. She said that you got to make sure that you carry yourself properly. When you're on your way out of things, when you are on your way out of a dilemma, you're at a very crucial time. It's a very delicate time. Because at that time, you are at a very, very weak time. It's a weak place. It's a weak season because you're trying to make your way out. And any turn that you make can abort the whole plan. So you got to make sure that you move with precision. And so God says, on your way out, Miss Lot, the only thing I ask you to do is don't look back. Because if you look back, you'll go back. So don't look back. Look at your neighbor. Say, neighbor, don't look back. Say, it's time to stretch. The key to rising higher is to keep looking where you want to go. You have to realize that God has matched you with your world. He has already put in you what you need. I thought about a transplant. You know, people get transplants, kidney transplants, heart transplants. The transplant they get don't really want to be in the body because it doesn't belong in that body. And so it will work to try to disconnect from that body because it knows that it don't belong in that body. And so the doctors are always having to give the person medication to try to keep the transplant in place. I like to say it like this: what God has given you in the world that he has ordered you, the enemy will try to cause you to disconnect from it. The very thing, the very treasure that God has placed in you, the enemy will try to cause you to abort. But look at your neighbor and say, what God has for you, what God has put inside of you, the devil can't take out. What God has put in your spirit, the enemy cannot take out. Why? Because it belongs to you. It's part of your DNA. It ain't going nowhere. It's part of who you are and what God has called you to be. In the Old Testament, God told Moses to confront Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, and command him to free God's people who had been living in slavery. Moses said, God, I can't do that. Moses said, you know, God, I stumble. I can't talk. I'm not a good speaker. I just can't do what you call me to do. God, I just can't do this. God, I don't have the ability. I don't have I don't have the knowledge. Who gonna listen to me, God? I don't have what it takes. But God looked at Moses and he said, Moses, who made your tongue? Moses, who made your voice? And God was saying, he says, Moses, I need you to draw out of you what I put in you. What I put in you, I need you to draw it out. Don't say what you don't have. Say what you do have. Don't say what you can't do. Begin to say what you can do. Don't doubt what God has put in you. Accept what he put in you. Let him increase what he put in you and let him multiply it. And then you can't let rejection keep you down. In order for you to stretch, you can't let rejection keep you down. Sometimes God will close a door, but that's because there's a better door in store. And what I found out is out of the greatest rejection comes our greatest direction. Out of our greatest rejection comes our greatest direction. That's why it's good that some folks are rejected. Because in that rejection, I'm getting ready to get a new set of direction. And ain't nobody mad but the devil. The dream in your life may be bigger than the environment in which you find yourself. Now consider an oak tree. If you plant it in a pot, its growth will be limited. Once its roots fill the pot, it can go no further. Now, the problem is not with the tree, but it's with the environment. And so Mark 8:22-26 says, and he cometh to Bethesda, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands upon his eyes, and made him look up, and he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he went his way to his house, saying, neither go into the town nor tell it to any in the town. Now, you got to realize that anytime people spit on people in those days, they was considered unclean until the evening. Now, Jesus has spit on two people in the New Testament. He healed another blind man by spitting in the clay and rubbing it in the man's eyes. But he also spit on the tongue of a man with a speech impairment. But notice in these cases, Jesus spit on the diseased part of the body, demonstrating that he was spitting on the disease, not the person. Now, this is the only case actually recorded in the world where Jesus, actually in the word, where Jesus had laid hands on a person more than once. But the reason why, because of the unbelief of the city of Bethesda where he resided. That's why, in order for you to go to many places that God is calling you to go to, you've got to get out of your environment. God says that I cannot do any good works in Bethesda. He told him, I need to call you out of your hometown. Because in your hometown, it is too much unbelief. But as soon as he took him out of Bethesda, he was able to heal him. But it was actually only recorded in the word where 2 times where Jesus had to lay his hands on him. He laid his hands on him, and the man said, I see tall men, I see men walking as trees. And God laid hands on him again, and he said, what you see? He said, I can see now. But his faith had to be built up. He was so contaminated in Bethesda, where he came from, God had to lay his hands on him 2 times. It is the only place in the word where God had to minister healing twice on any individual. But it was because of the environment that the blind man was in. His environment was so bad that it took Jesus to lay hands on him twice. Sometimes you can be in so unbelief that God will have to do it over and over and over and over again. Have you ever noticed sometime when you come to church and you hear a word and then you come back the next month and it's almost like, you know what, I heard this here before. I heard something like this here before. But all of a sudden it took root in you. Why? Because you have been actually nurturing. That word has been incubating. That soul has been developing. And all of a sudden, even though somebody said it last month, it finally took root today. That's why you can't afford to miss church, because you don't know when your deliverance is going to come. You don't know when the root is going to take place. You don't know when you're going to get your deliverance. You know how some folks say, well, I'm going to miss this one, but I'm going to go to that one? No, you got to go to all of them, because you don't know when God is going to do what he needs to do. You don't know who he going to use. You don't know how he going to use. Matter of fact, he can look at somebody. He can be using somebody sitting right next to you. Look at your neighbor and say, are you the one? Or look at somebody else and say, maybe you the one. So God can use whoever. So perhaps you have bigger things in your heart than your present environment. I'm going to move real quick. Y'all give me 5 minutes. God will sometimes stir you out of a comfortable situation. Because when you go through persecution and rejection, it's not always because somebody has it in for you. Rejection means a person or something can no longer prosper you. You rejected me because you can no longer prosper me. So I ain't mad at you. Your rejection has caused me to go to my next promotion. That means if you reject me, you don't have nothing else for me to give me. So I can just count you out as a blessing. We're done. It's over. You reject me. Wonderful. But God is getting ready to take me to another level. And I could never go to that never level tied to you. So God will cause you to harden your heart while you can reject me. Just why I can move on. Because if you never rejected me, I would always stay with you, attached to you. But God calls you to harden your heart against me because he knows that that would be the only thing that would open up my eyes to move to another direction. So I'll welcome your rejection. Hello. Nice knowing you, but goodbye. Thank you for the rejection. Thank you that you don't like me anymore. Thank you that you talked about me. Thank you that you rolled your eyes. Thank you for the rejection, because I'm getting ready to go to another opportunity. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, you can reject me if you want to. But I know out of that rejection is coming my promotion. So do what you got to do. Do what you got to do. Now, in some bank doors, there's two sets of double doors, and they're spaced sometime about 15 feet apart. And so we had went into the bank one day, and when I found out, the doors automatically opened as I approached it. But for security reasons, when I was, ready to go to the next set of doors, I had to close the door that I had left out. As long as I stayed at the first set of doors, the second set of doors wouldn't open. So in many ways, life operates in a manner similar to those automatic doors. You have to let go of your disappointments, let go of your failures, and let those doors totally close behind you. You got to step forward into the future that God has for you, knowing there's nothing you can do about past disappointments. You can't change the past, but you can do something about the future. What's in front of you is more important than is what is behind you. So in order for you to go into the next door, you got to totally allow the door that you walked out of close. You can't try to play with it. You know how we do sometimes. We kind of open it and close it, open it, close it. I'm going to open it, close it. Open it, close it. No, you got to close the door totally. In order for you to go to the next set of doors, I got to shut the doors behind me. I got to totally shut the doors. Because if I don't shut this door, that door is not going to open. What we try to do is keep this one open and keep that one open at the same time. And so here we are. We're playing with the doors. We're playing with the doors. But in order for me to go completely through this second door, I've got to close this first door. Many times you're trying to hold on to stuff that you need to be let go. And the reason why you can't go into the next door is because you haven't totally closed the first door. So look at your neighbor and say, close the door. And look at somebody else and say, it's time to stretch. And I got to have the right attitude. In order for me to get birth to more in the future, then I got to let the past be the past. I got to get my attitude right. So what is an attitude? Its roots are inward, but its fruit is outward. It's my best friend, but it's also my worst enemy. It is more honest and more consistent than my words. What is an attitude? It is an outward look based on past experiences. It is a thing which draws people to us or repels them. It is never content until it is depressed. What is an attitude? Well, it is the librarian of my past. It is the speaker of my present, but it also is the prophet of my future. So the enemy knows that if I can keep you from carrying full term what God has given you, I will cause you to abort the seed, and it'll never take root. You'll always live your life in average. But life may have tried to push you down. Life may have caused you to be knocked down through disappointments and other unfair situations. Life may have caused you to have setbacks. But whatever you do, stay calm. You got to get back up again. You got to dust yourself off. If you can't find anybody to encourage you, you got to learn to encourage yourself. Matter of fact, you got to get up in the morning, put your shoulders back, look in the mirror and say, I've come too far to stop now. I may be knocked down, but I'm not knocked out. I'm getting ready to get back up again. I'm not a victor. God is getting ready to change my situation. So I'm going to keep pressing. I'm going to keep believing. Because I realize I was not made to be average. I was made to excel. So I got to continually remind myself, you got a gift on the inside of you. You are talented. You are creative. And here comes the enemy again. He'll try to push you down. He'll try to keep your gifts, your creativity, your joy, your smile, your personality, and your dream forever seeing the light of day. But I come to realize that the forces that are for me are greater than the forces against me. The forces that are for you are greater than the forces that are behind you. So I can get up. I can move into that new dimension where God has called me to be. I'm going to walk with confidence. I'm going to walk with assurance. I got a new attitude. I got a new attitude. A brand new attitude. I'm kicking down the door of defeat. I'm going through. I'm going through. It ain't nobody can stop me. I'm getting ready to stretch into a new place in God. I'm getting ready to go where I've never been before. I got a new attitude. I sin with a new set of eyes. The blindness has been removed from my eyes. I can see again. I can dream again. I can envision again. My eyes seem to be dim at first. But as I keep my focus on Jesus, as I keep my eyes on him, the image is beginning to get clearer and clearer as the day goes. I'm able to see more clearly than I've ever seen before. I'm able to take hold of like I've never been able to take hold of before. I'm able to imagine the things that I was never able to imagine. Have you ever tried to imagine something but you just couldn't see it? You just couldn't visualize it. And you tried and you tried, but you just couldn't see it. Today is a new day. You'll see what you've never been able to see before. You'll be able to envision clearly and precisely, like spirit clear 2020 vision. I'll be able to see and do what I thought once was impossible. Look at your neighbor one more time and say, neighbor, it's time to stretch. It's time to stretch. It's time to go where I've never been before. It's time for me to even embrace what I could never ever see before. I see a glimpse of hope. I see a sparkle of light. It's beginning to shine. It's beginning to get clear and clear. I see what I've never seen before. Raise your hand and say, Father, I see what I've never been able to see before. I shall do the impossible because I know that you have a plan for me. Matter of fact, when you think about a car, the car you drive has a large windshield, but it's only relatively small as your rear view mirror. The implication here is very obvious. What happened in your past is not nearly as important as what's in your future. What happened in your past is not nearly as important as what is in your future. So how do I stretch? Number one, I got to discipline my thoughts to stop thinking about it. Whatever is weighing me down, I got to discipline my thoughts to stop thinking about it. Number two, you got to quit talking about it. And number three, don't let disappointment become the center theme of your life. And number four, you got to quit mourning over something you can't change. And number five, you got to let that door close behind you and step through the door in front of you. God bless you. Give the Lord a hand clap of praise, Pastor Jerry.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.